Hey guys, Jorbo here. So I got a really amazing discussion for y'all today. A discussion that may potentially blow your mind if you haven't yet heard this, or the theories revolving around this. But this is kind of old, and so I think the earliest theory that I've seen on the topic was made by Sammy of Oral Jackson, and other people subsequently have used the evidence that I'm going to be talking about in their theories. But this is going to be a discussion covering many of the topics surrounding it, and is really, really fascinating. So let's just jump right into this. It's about Caribou and his secret. So in case you guys don't remember, going back to the Fishman Island arc, a really crucial panel was dropped, in my opinion, which was that Robin and King Neptune were talking about how his daughter Shirahoshi was the ancient weapon Poseidon, and guess who was eavesdropping on that conversation? Well, it was Caribou. And I don't think that this exists for no reason. I absolutely think that at some point in time, Caribou, with this explicit knowledge, is going to, in the future, tell someone that he knows who and where to find Poseidon. Firstly, I think this was emphasized by Nico, Robin, and Neptune's conversation, where they sort of discuss, well, I understand why you keep this hush-hush. If the world were to find out, the pirates and marines and everyone would be fighting over Shirahoshi. And I definitely think that's the case, and I definitely think it's going to happen. That the world, some group, some faction is going to become aware that Poseidon is Shirahoshi, and this is going to cause a huge conflict. I believe it. So who is Caribou going to tell? Well, it's kind of interesting. A couple chapters after that, we see Caribou lost his treasure that he'd collected during the Fishman Island arc, and basically was like, well, I need to get my treasure back, and then I also need to keep this information that I have about Poseidon so that I can later tell that man or that person and get into their good graces. So that person, so clearly Caribou at least wants to tell one person who's unmentioned the information that Shirahoshi is Poseidon, and that he doesn't just want to use it for himself. And if we sort of follow the motives of Caribou, I think that there's one person that I would suspect more than any other. So he wants to get in that person's good graces. I think we can assume that this is probably a strong pirate. Caribou is a pirate. It would just make sense for it to be a really strong pirate, probably a Yonko. And then so it's interesting sort of the sequence of events that we see from Caribou. We learn back when we first meet Caribou in the Shibondi Archipelago arc version 2, right after the time skip, that he sort of wanted to join the fake Straw Hats, join their crew, but it was actually a lie that he wanted to join the crew. He actually wanted to join their crew so that he could kill Luffy. And then later we see that he follows Luffy and crew all the way to Fishman Island, further emphasizing Caribou's goal of sort of killing the Straw Hats for whatever reason. And then later on we see that he's collecting gold and stuff, and for this person. So I think we can tie these two things together. I think that person that he wants to give the information of Poseidon to, also would enjoy either the Straw Hats captured or killed. This obviously doesn't have to be the case. It could just be that he wanted to increase his reputation by killing someone with a really high bounty. But I feel this really strong connection between Caribou's sort of desires to impress this person, and then specifically targeting the Straw Hats for whatever reason. And so when thinking about a strong Yonko who at this point in the story has clear connections with the Straw Hats and may sort of desire the defeat of the Straw Hats, my first guess would really be Blackbeard. That Blackbeard is the person that Caribou wants to impress. Now, whether or not the world really knows of the connection between Blackbeard and Luffy, I'm not really 100% sure on that. Certainly we did see Blackbeard and Luffy both participated in the War of the Best, and then Luffy also confronted Blackbeard and Impel Down, but that story was sort of hush-hush. So whether or not Caribou would know about the relationship between Blackbeard and Luffy is kind of questionable. But if we do connect these two dots, it really wouldn't make any sense for, at this point in the story, for it to have been Big Mom, because there was, at this point, no connection between Big Mom and Luffy specifically, other than through Lola, which really nobody knew about. It could have been Shanks, but I really doubt that Shanks would have liked the death of Luffy or sent anyone to specifically kill Luffy. Shanks is also a good character, so that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And then going to Kaido, again, no clear connection between Luffy and Kaido, so that kind of leaves us with Blackbeard. And that's sort of my initial reaction. However, as sequences progressed in the story of Caribou, we find that after the Fishman Island, he ends up, through a roundabout way, on an island controlled by Kaido. And then so on this island, there's a couple interesting things, like there's revolutionaries on this island that ended up getting defeated by Scotch and X-Drake. But Caribou ends up basically saving the island, beating Scotch, and then X-Drake comes in, completely annihilates him quickly, and then drags him off and sails away in his ship, specifically to go to Kaido. And so, given Caribou's character, I think that we would all agree, if you just read into the story, that he is a coward, and he would be willing to say or do anything in order to save his life. And so, as the presumed leader of the revolutionaries that X-Drake and Scotch, or I guess X-Drake ended up defeating, being sent straight to Kaido, probably to get killed, it seems pretty freaking likely that Caribou is going to be like, wait, don't kill me, I have some information that you're going to want to hear, and so, promise to spare me, and I'll tell you that I know the location of the ancient weapon, Poseidon. It could also be that Kaido was the person that he mentioned all along as the person that he wanted to get in the good graces of. So he ended up stumbling on Kaido's favorite island, and actually ended up fighting against Kaido's subordinates, but it's not guaranteed that he knew who they were at that particular moment in time. And so he might learn later, oh, that was Kaido's island, that was the island that person that I was trying to get in the good graces. I didn't mean to fight you, I just sort of got caught up in the moment. I didn't realize I was fighting against your people. Regardless, if Caribou tells Kaido about Shirahoshi and her powers, I think that we can be guaranteed that Kaido is going to want that for himself. Both King Neptune and Robin basically said that. And so this is where it gets really interesting, and where this theory doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but I can make it make sense if we rearrange some of the things that we hold true. First things first is that Poseidon is in Fishman Island, and we also get the impression that she's going to head to the Reverie as well. But basically, she's on the other side of the world of the progression of events that Luffy and his crew are going towards. And we're also presuming that after Whole Cake Island will be the Kaido arc, be the fight versus Kaido. So some details need to be changed here in order for this to make sense. I think that Caribou for sure is going to tell someone of Poseidon, and that it will become a huge plot point. And if that person is Kaido, then somehow Luffy and crew and Kaido will have to end up back at the Red Line in order for that event to take place and make sense in the story. And so what that would mean would be that the Wano arc would not consist of a battle versus Kaido. This would suggest that the final enemy, the final boss of the Wano arc is actually the Shogun, and that we might meet some of Kaido's subordinates, specifically maybe the Calamities or a few of them and several other weaker subordinates, but that Kaido himself and at least a small portion of his forces are going to be heading towards Poseidon, and potentially the Reverie. They might potentially crash the Reverie. So what happens after this becomes a bit of a mystery. So if Kaido ends up crashing the Reverie or somehow attacking Fishman Island, then how exactly is this going to play out in regards to the Straw Hats? I think that we can all agree that Kaido should be taken out by Luffy in some way. Luffy should be present when Kaido is defeated. But it seems like a huge stretch for Luffy in Wano, or someplace even further than that, to find a way to backtrack all the way back to the Red Line in time to save Shirahoshi, if he doesn't even know that Shirahoshi is really in danger. So if everything I've said before here is true, then that might actually suggest that Kaido is going to attack the Reverie, but the Straw Hats are not going to participate in this arc at all. So this could be a huge off-screen fight that we don't even see, or if we do see, it's not going to be part of the main plot like involving the Straw Hats. It could be Kaido, the revolutionaries, and the world government all sort of duking it out at the Reverie in Mary Joa. Kaido himself mentioned that he wanted to start the greatest war that has been seen in the past century. And I've done my own theory on this, and in that theory I specifically discuss how I don't think it's likely to be the Reverie because of the apprehensions I just mentioned to you guys, which is that the Straw Hats would have to travel all the way back to the Red Line in order for that plot to make some sense to me with the Straw Hats' involvement in it. But this war in and of itself does lend to the idea that Kaido might specifically be targeting the Reverie already, even though he didn't know at that particular time that Poseidon was going to go, or maybe he doesn't even know that Poseidon is Shirahoshi. So with all this being said, it could be legitimately possible that the Straw Hats somehow find a reason to go back to Fishman Island and go to Mary Joa here in the semi-near future, for whatever reason. I don't see right now how that could be possible, but there is definitely reason to think that it might occur. At the very least, I think Poseidon attending the Reverie, Caribou's specific knowledge of Shirahoshi and her abilities, and him wanting to specifically tell someone this in order to gain their favor or whatever, all of these details are incredibly important and I believe will play a role in the plot in the future. How exactly that'll go down though is a huge question mark, but I think that these three things are important. But I think we shouldn't just limit ourselves to considering the idea that, maybe Caribou will tell Kaido or Caribou will tell Blackbeard, but it's also possible that he tells X-Drake and then he never ends up meeting Kaido in the first place. I think it's also possible that through him or somebody else, that somebody else will find out. Like if the world government found out, that would make a lot of sense to me. And then they would sort of hold Shirahoshi captive after attending the Reverie because of this knowledge that they gained somehow. And then this would set up sort of a return back to Red Line arc, along with perhaps after the Straw Hats have beaten Kaido, beaten Blackbeard, and then have obtained the One Piece and found the true history, and then they learn that Shirahoshi is an ancient weapon, the world government has obtained an ancient weapon, and then they head back to basically rescue her. Definitely that series of events makes a lot more sense to me, but how the world government would come to possess this knowledge is, as I said, just another question mark. But keep in mind that Oda does like his damsel in distress plotlines. We see them, it seems like, pretty much every single arc in some way. Even in this arc, Sanji's playing the damsel in distress, even though he's not a very pretty damsel. And so there's definitely a lot of reason to suspect that at some point Shirahoshi might become a hostage taken by some group or another trying to exploit her powers. But yeah, guys, let me know what you think. I really think that this is one of the coolest things out there, and I don't see enough people talking about them or including them in their theories about things. Definitely one of the theories that I think the evidence from it is some of the most important plot-related evidence out there in One Piece right now. But yeah, like the video if you like the video, subscribe if you're new to my videos and you want to be notified for my future content, and as always guys, have a wonderful day.